You can absolutely have a product that is accessible and available to everyone that wants it. The problem is that when you are talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. We lacked clarity. And you can be super creative and miss the boat. And so our goal was with this pass of let's just be clear. We'll layer in creativity and stuff later, but we've got to be clear. We wanted to be taken a little more seriously. I think there's room for delight, and a lot of companies do this really well. For us, this was a moment where we had almost over indexed on delight and had under indexed on clarity.
Hey, welcome to the Message Market Fit podcast. I'm your host, Chris Silvestri. This is the show where we chat with B2B SaaS folks, marketers, product leads, growth owners, and founders about how they join the conversation already happening in their customers' mind. We unpack how they think, how they research, and how they shape messages that actually move the needle. No fluff, just systems, insight, and strategy you can actually use. Quick note before we dive in. This podcast isn't sponsored. It's supported by Conversion Alchemy, my own consulting business. So if you're listening and thinking, I wonder how aligned our messaging actually is, check out the Message Market Fit Scorecard. It's a free diagnostic tool I built to help B2B SaaS teams pinpoint exactly where their messaging might be breaking down. You'll find the link in the show notes. Today's episode has been a long time in the making. My guest is Arielle Johncox, CEO and former head of marketing at Balsamiq, the company behind the popular wireframing tool used by product teams around the world. This episode is a messaging breakdown where we unpack how a company communicates its value and how that messaging evolves over time. In our chat, Arielle shares how she helped reposition Balsamiq after more than a decade in the market, moving the company from messaging that tried to serve everyone to a much clearer focus on product teams. We talk about the customer research and jobs to be done interviews that shape the new positioning, the biggest mistakes companies make when redesigning their websites, and why clarity matters more than anything at this stage. We also walk through the old and new website homepage side by side to see exactly what changed, so make sure that you tune in on our YouTube channel to see the video as well. Let's dive right in. Hey Arielle, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Yes, so we have an interesting messaging breakdown, especially because it's for a company that I'm kind of close to and also passionate about over the years. I've always followed you guys and followed the messaging, how it evolved, especially these recent years with this new iteration, completely changed. And I want to show people and also share with them kind of the secrets and the behind the scenes of how you kind of guided Balsamiq team with this new redesign and new messaging and positioning exercise. So first, before diving into all of that, I wanted to know kind of if you can give us a bit of your background, how you got into marketing and how you got into Balsamiq.
So I'm Arielle. I'm the head of marketing and customer experience at Balsamiq. And my background has been in marketing for, like 10, 11 years now. I started a couple small tech companies, tech startups. I was at a startup studio for a little bit where I was doing a bit of everything. It was some marketing, it was some PR, a little bit of user research. I ran some Google design sprints, so I touched the product side really early on. We're building and launching products every 6 months. We were trying to work with AI before everybody else was. So I got kind of a crash course in not just marketing, but in product first thinking and in product-led growth, and so many of the things that a couple years later in my career would be really relevant. I did a couple other things. I did some agency stuff. I tested out being more of a creative because at the core, I really got into this because I liked to design and so I started as a creative. I figured out that I was pretty good at the strategy and messaging side of things, stepped into that. Right before Balsamiq, I was at a really fast growing fintech startup where I joined, I think the day before we closed our Series B funding. And I was there all the way through Series E. And that was just a crash course in learning every angle of marketing that I could. And so I sat on the acquisition team, the growth team, product marketing, started like integrated campaigns, PR, brand, creative, built the content and social team, and just got this amazing crash course in how to adjust message based on what your goals are, how to use different tactics, how to really convince people, how to work with like technical products. And so my career has spanned all these different industries, a couple stints in the UX world. I did some work at a UX design and development agency in that marketing and comm side. And then I made my way to Balsamiq. Balsamiq was hiring a head of marketing. I thought, wow, how perfect. I had started my career using Balsamiq and learning how to wireframe and talking to
Nice.
customers through different ideas and beta testing and all of the good things. And I had really leaned into the low fidelity whiteboard sketching problem first way of thinking through products. And I was like, whoa, that's a really cool opportunity. It was like over a decade-old brand, and so I applied, I met the team, I got hired, I took the job, and then I took on a pretty big challenge of taking a company that had never really done marketing before. I mean, Peldi was our founder and CEO was on the speaker circuits, and he was talking and doing all the things, but no, like, formal marketing, no email
Mm.
marketing. The website was, like, pretty good, but also a little bit confusing. We were talking to everyone. And it was just this really pivotal moment because the competition had changed and the industry had changed. And so I came into a really big, exciting challenge.
Super interesting. And like for me, I want to share a bit of a kind of an episode that kind of anchors me in a way to Balsamiq, which was super important in my career, which was when I transitioned from software engineer to copywriter. One of the very first few big moments for me that actually got me a job at an agency where I kind of transitioned more into UX lead as well, usability testing. I actually showed balsamic wireframes that I created to show the copy to this agency owner in Austin, Texas. And they were like super impressed. And so that actually got me a job which basically connected me to my whole network that I have now. So it's
That's
pretty,
amazing.
yeah, it's good to see like how especially versatile balsamic has always been, both for product, but also for marketing, different use cases. And what do you think was the most limiting factor in the whole approach to messaging and marketing that Balsamic had?
I think the most limiting factor was that we were talking to everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean literally there were parts of our website that said, Balsamiq is for everyone. And that can be true. I think that's fine. That can be true. You can absolutely have a product that is accessible and available to everyone that wants it. The problem is that when you are talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. Because if I'm like, hey, this is for everyone, and you're a software engineer, you're like, okay, but, like, I'm a software engineer and I've got, like, all the tech stuff, and I don't know if I really care about
Yeah.
everyone. And we might have been talking to you. And if you're a product manager, you're like, "Okay, but, I mean, I'm doing, like, some pretty specific stuff, and I'm gonna go use this tool that's specifically for product managers because I don't know if you get me." And it's really confusing for customers, even if they won't say it, themselves using your product and to even begin to evaluate it, let alone pitch it, right? If you're just, one person, then you gotta evaluate it, but if you've got a team and whether or not you control budget, even for a low-cost tool, like, you have to tell people why you're gonna use it and saying, "Yeah, this tool for, like, everyone, and you can do anything with it, and you can sketch anything with it." And then people are like, Okay, but everyone's using this one because this one's for engineers, or this one's for product managers, or this one's for copywriters." And that became a really big challenge. And it becomes a challenge not just on the messaging side, it becomes a challenge on the product side. Because,
Mhm.
for example, if you're building for everyone, does everyone really have the same need? Maybe everyone likes easy to use, delightful tools, but what's easy to use for a designer is not going to be what's easy to use for a founder or what's easy to use for a product manager who has good design sense, but like they don't wanna be in 12,000 layers and, like, shading and all this stuff, and so we were building for a split audience, we had messaging for a split audience, and the context around us had changed. So everyone worked when we were, like, the only option that people had. As more options develop because SaaS matures, because what do you know? The industry changes from 2008 when this was started, there's more tools available. And I think today, there have never been more tools available to teams of any kind. And when that happens, you have to know who your people are and speak to them. You have to niche down in order to get that attention.
Yeah, which I think it's especially true now where there's very few industries or niches where there are no competitors. So I mean, you basically have to speak to your one, two, three ICPs each and every time. It's very rare now to be able to address the whole market and still be successful.
Yeah, people have options where when Balsamiq started, people had a lot fewer options. And so it was
Mm.
cool that you could do stuff, but things change. Designing and developing products evolves over time, technology changes. And so you have to be specific about what it's for. And we took a look and we realized, oh, designers are using different tools. This is actually really good for engineers and product managers, right? Like product owners. So tech leads. And there are dozens of titles that go into this, right? Some
Yeah.
people call him a business analyst and not a product manager. So it gets a little bit tricky even then, but it is for people that have some ownership, some involvement in the product, and they're not a designer, but they have to act like one or they have to visually communicate their requirements
Mm.
to someone else to get it. And
Yeah.
we realized, oh man, that's an opportunity. And not only did we realize that, but we went, oh, that's what this was built for in the first place. Because when Peldy built Balsamiq, he built it because he was trying to talk to a PM about an idea that they had. And he was
Yeah.
an engineer at the time. And so we literally just went back to,
That's
oh,
nice.
this was the
Yeah.
whole purpose anyway.
Yeah, which I guess it's harder after a while that you've been building, you've been inside the company, which is a lot of my work is also when I do for clients, it's kind of giving them that outside perspective just because they've been into it so long that it's hard for them to see like crystal clear what the actual USP is. So you basically did the same job. You went in, you kind of excavated, kind of extracted the juice from it. And speaking of when you came in, what were the first few steps that you took, and how did you feel? Were you kind of overwhelmed about the amount of work that you needed to do, or did you have a pretty clear approach to follow? How was it?
Think that walking into opportunities like this can definitely feel overwhelming. For me, the pattern has always been the more questions and the more unknowns and the more chaotic, the calmer I am.
Mm.
Because when you strip everything away, all the details, all the noise, all the like LinkedIn posts that tell you should do something this way, all the opinions, you just have to figure out who you're talking to before you can make any other decision. You literally can't make any decision about channels or messaging or testing or all of this stuff. You can have the best experimental framework in the world, but you got to know who you're talking to. And so for me, that was really clear. It's who are we doing this for? Who are we building for? Who are we talking to? Are the teams on the same page? And when I realized we might not know, that I said, okay, well, there are frameworks to figure that out. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so it doesn't really have to be overwhelming at all. I think it can be intimidating because it is hard to
Mm.
look at a business that's been around for more than a decade
Yeah,
and
and
that
reinvent.
and reinvent. And that's historically seen success. And that was like, hey, we need a little help bumping that back up again. And it's intimidating to make big, bold recommendations because you might be wrong, even with the
Yeah.
data. You don't know until you launch something, but you do the best you can with the research. And so I know, and I've used the jobs to be done framework for pretty much my entire career. I think I learned it the first year doing work. And I was like, this makes sense. And you can apply it to so many different scenarios. And as a marketer, product teams and customer teams really respect you when you can work from those types of frameworks because they understand them. They're
Mm.
proven. They're pretty foolproof if you do it right. Like 10 interviews and you've got a pretty good idea of what you're working with and what their pain points are and what the jobs are, paired with a data analysis, that's easy. That can be done. At Balsamiq was historically allergic to data,
Yeah, yeah.
which is probably the scariest part, right? Everyone was like, no data, no, Ariel, what are you talking about? But it's pretty easy to get people on board when you're like, hey, we need to do two things. We need some segmentation questions in onboarding because we've got to know who's signing up. And we need to then just analyze the new based on signups, like who's actually buying this thing. And then we can go talk to all of the people, but then we know how many people from each group to talk to. And if we don't do that, we're just going to keep flying blind. And you know what? Worst case is we hate those onboarding questions and we get rid of them later. But let's just figure this out. And then you can just show that every product has it. And even though it's kind of annoying for customers, right, it's really helpful for a company to understand who's coming
Yeah.
in and who's buying. And so once we had that, we could look at the data, we could overlap it with where does revenue come from? Where do the trial signups come from? Who's most successful? Who is this helping the most? Talk to them with the jobs to be done framework, and you're like, oh, I understand what they need, what they want, what their worries are, what they're trying to do. Now I can talk to
Yeah. Was it mostly like polling and asking new signups, or did you also inquire in your existing list of customers?
them. We focused on new signups
Huh.
because the challenge with the existing list of customers, which we ended up forcing through too. So, like, the first step was new signups because easy to launch. Let's see how it works, right? Let's see if like it tanks signups and all of that. And then we ended up saying, okay, the next time anyone logs into Balsamiq or like the second time they're forced to do the
Ah, okay.
onboarding. So then we did roll it out to existing customers, but we did only focus on Balsamiq Cloud. We have a couple products because
Yeah.
we knew at that point that was the future of our product. And we also wanted to see what that difference was between the new and existing customers and like how it kind of matched up. And luckily for us, we were like, okay, there are some clear signals of where we need to focus. And the most important thing for us was to understand if we needed to continue to focus on designers or not,
Yeah.
because that's just a very, very different audience. And Balsamiq was always built so non designers could do it. But then over time, we had added a bunch of features for designers. I think it's great. I think many designers still use Balsamiq, but it's very different building a product particularly for them
Mm-mm-mm.
versus for your person that is actually using this because they don't have access to a
Yeah.
designer or skip that phase.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. I would say, why don't we jump on the website? Do you want to start and kind of briefly look at the old version, and then we can look at the new one and kind of compare them?
Yeah, we can totally do that. So this is the old version
All right.
from Wayback Machine,
Yeah, I don't know if this is what is this? Last year, I think. Oh no, maybe this
2024.
year. Ah, okay, last
Last year.
year. Yeah. So it should be the last one before the new redesign. Cool. So life's too short for bad software. And this has been, I think, from what I remember, kind of historically, the point of view as well that Balsamiq had.
Yeah, and honestly, this is still our point of view.
Hmm.
Life is still too short for bad software. Who wants to use a crappy software product? No one. But what does that even mean? What does that mean to people? And when we do the jobs to be done interviews, I'm using Balsamiq to make good software. That's not the problem that Balsamiq solves. The problem that we solve is, can I communicate my requirements visually so that people understand accurately? Because I don't wanna rework stuff. I don't want to go back and forth with a dev. I don't wanna build the wrong thing. It's expensive, then I have to rebuild. And can I make better decisions because it makes me think? Because if I go high fidelity too quickly. So that's what we learned. We learned that, yeah, life is definitely too short for bad software, and anyone can design great websites, web apps, right,
Everything.
using all of the things. So anyone can design all of the things. Like, okay. But you can see how this doesn't speak to anyone's problem in particular. No
Yeah.
one is searching for a wireframing tool going, I want to design good software. Also, the word
And
software is kind of outdated and no one's really using it.
yeah, and it's still, I think, it still doesn't connect the dots between this vision and what the product does. Like someone jumping on this page is basically reading kind of like a philosophy, a point of view still. They still don't know what this is.
Like, since 2008, our mission is to help rid the world of bad user interfaces. This is a lovely mission. It's amazing. It also, over time, starts to sound like some big consulting firm came in and like wrote a mission statement. And it's not that it's bad copy, it's just that's not the place for it. It
Mm,
doesn't make sense there. It doesn't help anybody understand, because when they land on the website, they're trying to figure out and start evaluating, like, what is this thing? Do I need it? Do I want it? How does this fit into my world? What can I do? And also, you have no idea what it looks like.
Exactly. Yeah,
You
there's no
literally don't know.
screenshots.
No. And then I scroll down, and then this was a YouTube, and so you can see
Yeah,
the video. But there's just so much stuff before you even know what this thing is.
especially on mobile. Right now, if one looks at it on mobile, it's probably you have to scroll multiple screens to actually get to the video, and then you have to click on the video as well.
And a lot of people watch the video on silent and, like, again, look, videos are good, and we were not at this time, I think when this website was built, is optimized for mobile, and in general, like, the
Mm.
Balsamiq experience works best on desktop because who is wireframing or designing on a tiny little
Yeah,
mobile screen? Not a lot of people,
yeah,
but you might still find us from
yeah, exactly.
oh,
Yeah, and then again, we make UI design accessible to and then everyone basically.
literally everyone. And again, this isn't bad. You'll actually look at a lot of products today that have those giant drop downs of like use cases or solutions, right? And you'll see this is for every single role in a company, right? Including like your legal and compliance team. And you're like,
Yeah,
what do I even do with this? That's fine. Those are specific landing pages written specifically for those groups of people. And I think that's okay because your product might actually be for lots of different groups, but there's probably a primary group
mm,
that you're really targeting. Maybe 1 or 2, probably 1, and it doesn't help when you list all of them because now I'm trying to look for myself, but I'm like, I
yeah,
still don't know what this thing does. But yes, it's the fastest, most focused, low fidelity wireframing tool in the industry, but I don't know why I should care about that. So I would already have to know that I care about this to start
before
caring.
yeah, to start scrolling and carrying. Yeah,
Yeah.
all right. Then you have a link, download, and then different options.
Then you have 3 CTAs, and so no one knows what to do.
Yeah,
I mean, literally, no one knows what to
yeah,
do. How does this help you make a decision? And we've got some testimonials, which is good. And some of this is, if you look, a lot of websites used to look this way too. Like the world has just gotten much better at UX, marketing,
yeah.
product design. So some of this is just you evolve over time.
Yeah. Did you actually do any user interaction heat map tracking on this website before the changes or no?
We did not because you can look at the data and see like
The
where
signups
people
and everything.
yeah, you can look at signups and you can look and again, I think heat maps and all of that stuff is good when you're like, "Let's optimize."
Yeah, yeah.
But
When you
when you're
already
in a
have something pretty good, you need to get that extra step forward.
but when you're in a phase where we had a couple problems, like the messaging was confusing and we had a just like a design and brand problem, and normally it's such a joke when a new marketing person comes in and wants to do a rebrand. But in this case, people had been telling us about it for years, and it genuinely was one of those things where it's okay. Yes, if you're gonna be in business for now it's 17 years, then it was like, what, 15 or 16 years, you have to evolve with the time. And so when you do a big change like that, if you're a giant corporation, maybe you need heat maps and research and brand lift studies and all of this stuff. When you are a bootstrap business that's profitable, but like pretty scrappy, small team,
Yeah.
it's not going to help you. It's not going to change the decision making you make today. Optimizing based on incremental changes is not what's going to move the needle
Yeah.
at the first pass.
Yeah. It's not the 80/20.
Yeah.
All right. And then you had the academy area section, which has always been, I think, a big part of Balsamiq, the educational aspect, or like a thought leader in the UX, UI space, wireframing.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was also one of the challenges, right? Because we're teaching people how to be designers, but the audience that we discovered we're talking to doesn't actually wanna be a designer, they just wanna be
Mm.
effective at
Yeah.
their job.
Yeah.
And they wanna
Right.
design great things, but they're gonna approach it differently, and so this was another area where we were like, "Oh, we have to do a couple of adjustments."
Yeah.
And then again, way too many just too many buttons.
And also not really prioritized. I mean, the other ones up the top, there was the buy button that was different, but then kind of blends in a bit with the color. These are all gray, so it's kind of hard to understand where to go.
Yeah, it's
There's
hard
no
to
really like a clear path to.
and even the buy button being red makes it look like a cancel error button,
Mm.
so there's a little bit of color
True.
psychology that comes into play. And
Yeah.
again, it is easy to look at a website historically and be like, "Oh my gosh, how did we do that? Why did we do that?" But, like, when this website first went out, it was better than the one before it.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." And so I think it really just your perception changes over time, the business needs, the user needs the customer needs all evolve over time, and design and copywriting and marketing gets better and evolves.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we've got this, then we've got stuff about our company, which again, all of this is really cool and nice, but we're trying to get people to buy a wireframing tool. And this probably wasn't the most critical thing that they needed
Yeah.
at this point. Because if someone is curious enough about your company, they will find your about page on your website. They know to look in the main nav or in the footer.
Yeah.
Everyone's trained to do so. I like that we had, these little testimonials sprinkled in everywhere, but again, like, it all just kind of blended in, and so there were so many good elements of trying to show off the company we are and doing good in the world, and
Yeah.
it's lovely.
So another thing that I noticed that we will see it's different on the new website is that the testimonials just have the name of the person, not even the role. So you don't even know what do these people do.
Yeah, like here, like,
Yeah,
who
there or
knows?
the one up top. Yeah, you don't really know, are these people the same? Like, are these people my role? Do they do the same job that I do as well?
And, like, you can go click on it and you can see it, but then you're
Yeah,
off the website and then you're lost,
exactly.
and so we're kind of getting people to be a little bit all over the place, and again, great story about Balsamic's heart as a company. And I think that's important, but it's not important in this moment because now you're thinking about, okay, it's a wireframing tool. What do you do with it? How does it even work? But I
Mm.
guess you guys give back and you have education and you have a good company that's long lasting. Well, now you're confused. And so now we're really relying on someone having heard about us before, heard Peldy
Yeah,
talk to kind of build the picture, or we're hoping that they're going to stick around and click on the website for a long time. And some people will do that, but a lot of people won't.
yeah.
And then we've got a
And then
CTA.
final call to action, multiple call to actions.
And not just that, but then you've got these guys hyperlinked and what does that mean? And then you're going to click on them and you're going to realize that's a new product. So we integrate, but we have different products.
Mm,
And then you've got a lot in the footer, which is good, so I can learn a lot about the product, but now I'm stressed because now there are
yeah.
user forums and research and tutorials and documentation and support, and what is the difference between documentation and support? Is this a developer tool? All of these things start going through your head, but as a customer, you don't realize that. You don't realize the overwhelm and the overload. You just go, "Okay, I don't really know, so unless I've been really impressed elsewhere, I don't I can't figure this out. I'm just gonna not worry about
Yeah.
it."
Yeah. And one thing that I remember, I think, for when it comes to the academy, in the old website, I think it also redirected to an entire separate website, or was it a subdomain? Something else.
I think it was a subdomain at the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
which is fine. That's fine, but it didn't really connect to the main
Mm,
website, and so now you're in this whole different world, and the idea was because we really thought Paldy's always said, "You can give someone a paintbrush, but that's not gonna make a Michelangelo." And that's kind of what we thought, right? We can give non-designers this amazing software where they can build anything. But it doesn't mean that they're gonna know how to do it in a really good
mm,
way. And so that was the idea behind education, and I think this was great. Balsamiq was ahead of most companies with how do we just give this knowledge, and how do we evangelize through giving knowledge? The challenge was that we weren't as good at the time at connecting it to our product. We were so focused on giving that it almost became like kind of its own entity. And so we
yeah.
spent a lot of time of connecting the two because actually customers were like, "Can you also teach me how to use the product a little bit more though?" Like, it's easy to learn and it's intuitive, but there are also some tips and tricks, and some people want their handheld anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I think we can move to the new version now.
cool. So
All
this is where
right.
we're at now.
And so just for context, you did an entire rebranding and messaging and positioning project, right? So it wasn't just like the copy or
Yeah.
the design, it was also the brand logo.
Yeah, and let's not make that as stretched out as I had it, but, this we did a whole again, people were like, "Hey, you guys look old, and are you still around?" They're still like, "Oh, are you still around?" You're like, "Okay." And again, normally a rebrand isn't the best answer to re regaining traction and reinventing yourself in a market, but I think when companies are around for decades, not months, they'll go through this at some point. Like, it's just inevitable, things change, and so for us, it was really important to not make it a trendy redesign, to really make it a timeless redesign, but to have a brand that stands out a little bit more, that grows up a little bit. Like, the smiley face was really cute and quirky, and there was nothing wrong with cute and quirky, but we're also selling to an audience that's kind of more serious
Mm.
sometimes, and so we wanted to be taken a little more seriously. I think there's room for delight, and a lot of companies do this really well. For us, this was a moment where we had almost over-indexed on delight and had under-indexed on clarity.
Yeah, which is basically the exact same thing when we talked about the messaging. It was talking about let's make software easier, software nicer, and but it wasn't really speaking to that specific target audience. Which same with the design and the branding.
Exactly, and so I think now we're in a phase where we've gotten to some clarity and we can start layering in that delight and personality again,
Yeah,
but the first step was, like, we need to get to clarity, like, people need to understand what we do, how it fits into this world, people need to see us as a more modern company, people need to get excited about us again, as much as we say low fidelity, like, visuals also matter even in low fidelity, and so that's how we came up with this new design aesthetic, and it was really well received, and it did well, and between the rebrand and the updates to the website, we just saw trial signups shoot up,
yeah.
which was great and incredibly rare because the day before we launched the new site, I think I had nightmares of, "Are we gonna tank our SEO? Are we gonna tank trial signups?" We just spent months working on this. The whole thing is custom coded. Like,
Wow,
it's not like on a Webflow
template.
or
Yeah,
anything. Yeah, it's all custom code. Oh my god. And then it went really well, like, way better than
nice.
expected.
Yeah, and I think talking about rebrand, you mentioned, I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of companies make when they do rebrands is that they already have messaging that doesn't work. And so what they do is basically like putting lipstick on a pig. They rebrand, but they leave the same messaging. They don't already do no research. They don't really rewrite any copy. They just make it nicer, but the overall gist, like, is still the same. And so
Yeah,
what you did is actually good work, like rebranding, but also kind of pointing out, filling in the gaps, explaining better, clarifying.
yeah, and, like, immediately on the page now, you're like, "Oh, I see a bunch of different outputs."
Yeah.
They're different kinds. Okay, some of this stuff looks familiar. There's some boxes. We're talking about that user benefit up front, and then in the subhead, we're talking about some of those jobs to be done. And again, I think like any website, there's room for us to A/B test and see if we put visual requirements in there, would it do better? We hadn't gotten
Mm.
to that point yet. We needed to get to, this is the messaging, and then I think within the messaging, there can be a lot of nuance, and that's why you'll see testing. But we also had to do things like even the trusted by top teams section, we adjusted the logos that were on there because we were promoting, like, all of these different kinds of companies that maybe didn't match the user base,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so really, we wanted people that landed on our website to either see themselves in the product or to be like, I don't know if this is what I'm looking for."
I want to call out a couple of things in the value proposition that I like. So the first one is you start with wireframe your way to faster, better product decisions, which first is already a qualifying call out because you're basically speaking to people who know what wireframing is. In the old website, I don't think. Yeah, you had Balsamiq wireframes as far as the brand and product name, but you didn't really use it as a kind of qualifier.
Mhm.
It's already more specific. And the other one, it's very clear jobs to be done. So reduce work, speed up design cycles, and keep projects moving forward. How did you get to these? Was it did those interviews? How
Jobs
many
to be done
times did?
interviews.
Yeah, yeah. So it was basically like frequency of. Yeah,
And the beauty with some of these AI tools now is analysis that would have taken,
yeah,
forever. It was so much faster and better, and of course, we have, privacy locks where, like, you anonymize the interview and the transcript, and you make sure you're on an enterprise account and the model isn't trained on it, all of the stuff to protect customer info. But yeah, like, you run that analysis through even, like, just a chat GPT, and you have a really killer
mm,
prompt, and you do all the things, it'll tell you where some of the patterns and opportunities are. And then I literally just highlighted the exact language that customers used because sometimes there's no need to reinvent the wheel. We want to
Mm.
talk exactly like they talk. The best case scenario for us is if our words sound like someone slacking or texting their colleague.
Yeah. You also say you started with get your whole team aligned in minutes. So I guess this was probably the biggest motivation, like driver for these people, like being able to convey their ideas visually and align other teams with their ideas.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think, again, like, that visual requirements piece is really what people are using it for, and it's tricky, right? Because some people will use Balsamiq solo, and so
Mm,
faster, better product decisions, right? Reduce rework and everything. But a lot of people will run their ideas by someone else, a customer, a colleague, a boss, whatever, a stakeholder. And the biggest thing that we would hear is, yeah, me and my engineer, like we were just on the call with the designer for 2, 3 hours talking through, and the designer's moving pixels on the screen. And I'm like, what? Or, yeah, my whole engineering team's mad because they built this thing, but then they missed half the requirements. And it's really because they didn't read our Jira ticket well enough, or they didn't read the, 50
yeah.
page product requirements doc that I posted to Notion. And you're sitting there listening to interviews because we interviewed both customers and non-customers to really get ourselves oriented around it. And you're like, "Oh my gosh, your life doesn't have to be that hard."
Mm,
What a terrible way to spend your time fighting with people or, like, just playing that tug of war that we all know too well. "Well, that's not what I had in mind." "Well, that's what you wrote." "Well,
mm,
but that's not how I would have done it." Well, okay, but that's, like, how it technically works, right? And so no one could talk about
yeah.
technical implications or any of this stuff, and so people spent so much time just agreeing on stuff and aligning, and I don't know, every marketer, I think, in particular, has some horror story about the
Yeah.
20th time that they had to redo onboarding, for example. What a nightmare to spend hours back and forth on that, and your CEO or your, like, head of product is, I don't know, like, that button should be green. And then you go to right before launching it and someone's, is this the right order of screens? And you just, like, your heart sinks, your stomach drops, like, whatever happens to your body, it just sucks. And so
Yep.
we realized that the, oh my gosh, this rocks moment was when you could skip all of that and you could get someone to look and be like, "Yeah, that seems like the right direction," or, "Oh, if we do it that way, just so you know, that'll take longer to code because it's harder," or, "You know what, that's not possible with our design system."
Yeah. Yeah, those aha moments, super vivid images and
Mhm.
visuals that you get in interviews, those are my favorite as well. And then you have to kind of try and encapsulate them in the copy in obviously short space, but need to convey the idea, which I think you've done really well. And then you have a video. Why did you use a video right there rather than just jumping into the copy and the how it works kind of section?
Mostly because I think today a lot of people really like videos. The video is a minute and 30 seconds. The last video was 7 or 8
Yeah, really.
minutes or so, right? And it was a lot longer.
Uh,
One of those gut instincts, I think, when you are selling a visual tool like we are, you've gotta be visual up front, and if we were to just skip to this part, like, you can kind of understand what's going on, but if you really are, unfamiliar, then this is gonna explain it. Thing that we figured out is, like, a lot of people know what wireframes are. They might define them in different ways, and they might have what we feel like is the incorrect definition or the less correct. None of that matters because people don't really care. They just care what their definition is, and so we redid the video too. It was important to us to show, how the product really worked and to give people that chance, and if they don't wanna look at it, cool, they can move on, but the other cool part is you can totally turn the sound off, you can play it, and you'll see some people talking, but then you're like, "Oh, how does this work? Oh my gosh, now we're showing 10 times the things and we're really telling
yeah,
that story." And then I
yeah.
can start seeing all of this stuff being dragged and all of the features being shown off. And so it was a much better way of us to not have walls of copy.
Yeah, which I think also helps because you kind of for balsamic especially, you need to convey the uniqueness of it and how it's different from something like Figma or some other platforms right away. And I think the video helps a lot because first you kind of expand on the problem that you had in the headline, those jobs to be done with
Mhm.
the teams, problems, alignment, and then you go into the actual interface and how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, yeah, then you slide down, scroll down, and you have a very clear process, how it works, and then the gifts,
Mm.
dynamics, and the top 1, 2, 3 calls to action. And that's basically it,
Yeah,
which is
and
super simplified.
it's super simplified, and again, like, there are hundreds of ways to do these parts of a site. We definitely chose more of a typical SaaS formula because our goal with this was clarity. We lacked clarity,
Mm.
and you can be super creative and miss the boat, and so our goal was with this pass of, "Let's just be clear. We'll layer in creativity and stuff later, but we've gotta be clear for right now."
Yeah. Yeah. And then we have the testimonials, which, as we mentioned earlier, actually state the roles. So you can
Mhm.
understand, okay, this is for me, this is not for me.
Yeah, you can see yourself in it. And so, like,
Exactly.
we have a web designer testimonial, but we're not really talking to them throughout. We're just giving those slight signals. Yeah, people use it, but for the most part, you're like designers, founders, software engineers, those people that are just in charge of stuff that wear multiple hats. You'll see product designers, but roles now are so funky that we have realized that we need to include of these things because a product designer actually is like more like a product engineer in a lot of
Uh,
companies these days. And so we are constantly trying to evolve with what modern product design and development looks like, and that's why we talk a lot about product teams.
yeah,
So we'll
yeah.
go into roles in particular, but this is most beneficial for product teams. Now, marketing teams get a kick out of this too. We certainly do, but that's not like the main thing. And our main differentiator isn't that you can just make amazing websites, although you absolutely can. And we have customers that do that. Our main thing is you can create really great products, internal tools, all of those things.
Yeah. And then we have main call to action again, which is the 14-day free trial and a nice value prop that says, don't let your best product ideas get lost in translation. Try Balsamiq free, no credit card. Again, for kind of anxiety, stress relieving here. Get started in seconds as well, which speaks to how fast and easy it is.
Mhm.
Try free for 14 days. Yeah, pretty simple again. And then you go into the education aspect with the academy, help center, templates, and you unified the academy under the same domain, right? I think.
Yeah. So if we look in it's here, but now it doesn't look like a whole different site.
Separate website. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can even, what is a wireframe? The academy turns
Actually didn't
into
try that.
a
Nice.
wireframe, and so this was a feature that we had on the old site, but it was so hidden, you couldn't find it, and so now that's, like, the first thing, and it's explaining all about wireframes, and literally, it just turned the whole page into a wireframe, and you can be
Yeah,
like,
it's very cool.
"Oh, I get it." We played around with if we add this to the homepage and maybe we'll test it, but again, the first pass was like, "Hey, we gotta focus."
Yeah, yeah.
Um so yeah, the Academy got a really big update. We used to have all of our content in here. Now Balsamiq Academy is exactly what you'd expect it to be about. It is really just about the product and learning to wireframe and learning UI design with the product. And so
Mm,
we've got different like learning tracks and courses. Our product tutorials are in here. We've got a control cheat sheet. We've got our product updates in here now and team talks and control guidelines. And that separated it out from our blog, which is some of that higher level product wireframing thinking, life of
mm,
Balsamiq. We're talking a lot about artificial intelligence now and how that fits into design and development. And so this was the other part of the website and messaging of people need to know what they're about to read about or experience on the page. And so
yeah,
we did a really big overhaul in clarifying all of this because it was just confusing. And we have cross links there. But now, if you want to learn about product thinking, you're going to go to the blog. And if you want to get like super, super actionable with our tool, you're going to go to the academy.
yeah, yeah. Very cool. The last thing that I wanted to touch on this new website that I really liked exploring were the new, I don't know if they're new or you already had them, but the competitor comparison pages,
Yeah, those are newer.
which, yeah, okay. So, because I think I stumbled on a kind of like a transition version of the old website where you had some like cards, I think either on the homepage or somewhere else, where you kind of had choose Balsamiq when you want to do XYZ and choose other
Mhm.
platforms to do XYZ. And
Kind
then
of
you
a
created these individual pages, which I think are very good, effective, because they kind of give the positive points of the other platforms, but then tell you, but Balsamiq is good for this and this.
yeah, so Figma is a big one that people
Yeah.
ask about, and it's natural to be like, "Well, why can't I just do it all in Figma?" And realistically, because everyone we've talked to will just waste half their day in Figma, and we are in such a fast-moving product design and development world right now. Like, you cannot have your team that's probably lean spending half their time in Figma if they don't have to. There is absolutely a time and place for high fidelity design. There's a time and place for design systems. But when you're making those decisions early on, that actually will make the decisions worse, more confusing, take longer. You'll backtrack. Everything's harder to do. If you have the low fidelity design, then you can move on to the higher fidelity stuff and feel a little bit better about it. And so we really wanted to make sure that people understood the difference so that they didn't come to Balsamiq and go, "Why can't I have my design system in here?"
Mhm.
But also so that they understood how to work through it together. If you've got a design system, just add a wireframe to the
Yeah.
doc. But if you're doing like a big design overhaul, yeah, have your layout and then, pass it off to your designer or whoever's doing it and then have them tinker in Figma. They're going to be much faster, much more effective. And even if they make a few different decisions, they know what you mean. You have clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Ariel, I think you did an amazing job. I wanted to ask, what was the biggest challenge for you in this whole redesign, remessaging project?
The biggest challenge was just the sheer amount of copy to write and the number of things that we were looking at. And so, this was a site with a ton of content on it. And we removed a lot of content because there was a lot of stuff that was outdated. And the hard part was that when you're doing something big like this, you don't have a lot of time to test. Like, you can't test every single thing. You can't know for sure if it's going to work. You can't know if you're making things better or worse. You think it's better, but you don't know. And so I think the hardest part was trying to even figure out, like, man, how do we organize all these resources? Okay, how does this headline differentiate from this one? How do we promote ourselves but not make it sound like marketing copy just threw up all over the site? Because no one likes that. In
Yeah.
particular, product people don't care. Like,
A reverse.
they're super
Yes.
averse, they're super skeptical. A lot of them are gonna be pretty technical, especially in our audience, and so the hardest part was there was just so many moving pieces, so much history, and it was a big risk moving towards this level of clarity and being super focused.
Yeah. Awesome. My last question is where do you go to learn? What's your favorite place or resource?
Oh, man. There are so many resources, so it depends on what when it comes to writing, I just really like to read good writing. And so I will look at a number of different resources. I don't worry too much about the mechanics. I mean, you can look at people like, Brendan Hufford, who talks about
Mm.
owning your content IP and how to write for them. You can go look at Anne Hadley, who is the queen of copywriting,
Yeah.
especially in tech. But actually like to see how real people write and how they communicate. And so I'll read The Pragmatic Engineer, even when I don't
Ah,
understand some of the technical things that he's talking about. I'll read different growth and business newsletters for different audiences. I'll read the Todoist newsletter who's talking
mm,
activity. I like looking at a lot of different sources so that I get inspiration and so that when something's working, I can be like, "Oh, I get how it works," and I'm constantly being fed a lot of different stuff.
yeah.
Another person who I really like to follow is Louis. I'm gonna butcher his last name, he's French, Louis Grenier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Louis Grenier. He is so bold, so funny, no bullshit, and I have found that looking through, that sort of lens helps too, because you're like, "Okay, I know what to do, I just gotta do it."
Yeah.
I look at a number of different sources. I think the biggest trick that or trap that marketers fall into is just, like, looking at all the marketing
Mm,
newspapers, and there are a lot of them, and I couldn't even name all of the ones that I pay attention to. If I wanted to, we'd be here all day. But the best thing you can do is actually step out of your bubble and step
mm,
in your customer bubble around everything. Hobby
yeah.
newsletters, if you learn that your customers are all, like, nerdy gamers, you go read a bunch of gaming newsletters even though you're not actually building, like, a gaming software, right? That's an example. You learn
Yeah,
a lot about how
immerse
people think
yourself in their world. Yeah.
completely. I have an entire folder in my inbox and on my desktop that is dedicated to a day in the life of a customer
Nice.
and me
I
just,
like
like,
that.
just based on what I've learned from SparkToro and research, just looking at it.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. All right, Ariel, thank you so much. So people can find Balsamiq at balsamiq.com, right? And you have a
Yes.
14-day free trial, which people can just sign up and try.
Yeah.
And where can they find you? Where can they connect?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn. They can give me a follow or connect. I post on there about all sorts of things related to marketing and product and go-to-market strategy are the things that I tend to talk about. Every once in a while, I give a peek behind the scenes of some of what we're doing at Balsamiq. That's primarily where I'm on. I'm also on X and Blue Sky, although not as
Hmm.
frequently.
Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you so much. It's been really good.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If the episode sparked some ideas or made you rethink how you're doing messaging, check out the Message Market Fit scorecard. It's free, quick to complete, and it'll show you exactly where your copy or strategy might be misaligned. You'll find the link in the show notes. And if you want to go deeper or just bounce ideas around, I'm always up for a chat. Hit me up on LinkedIn or Twitter at SylvesterChris. And of course, if you enjoyed the episode, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify really helps more people discover it. That's it for this one. See you next time.